the Tanith first and only.
Spiky Bits.
Welcome back, Hobby Maniacs. I'm Rob Bear from SpikyBits.com. We're going to unbox and build the new Astro Militarum Imperial Guard Gaunt's Ghost Regiment from, of course, 20 years worth of novels. Great novels, all of them for the most part. I haven't read a couple of the new ones, but I've loved them. This kit is widely available. I mean, GW stock levels have really come back, so it's going to be really exciting to talk about it because, you know, a lot of people can actually get these things, which is great. They also came out with the Cadian Shock Troopers box that contains one upgrade sprue. So you get one sprue that basically contains all this. It's like half sprue. I'll show it to you here in a second, but I'm not going to spend too much time on that because that's probably going to be a separate video, because I want to kind of compare it to some of the other upgrades out there and kind of see if it's worth the value. Don't quite know 100%, but it's cool that, you know, you can get the majority of what you need, even though it doesn't come with a heavy weapons platform, of course. But then who knows how much these things would cost. And speaking of cost, the Gaunt's Ghost box is $65 US for 6 figures. So over $10 a figure for these guys right here. But I think, you know, obviously hobby's expensive. You can get your hobbies for less. Dicehead.com, Amazon, your local game store hopefully is discounting at least 15% that GW lets them, if not more. But yeah, that's a lot. that's a lot of money for 6 guardsmen. They are their own squad, which is kind of cool, but we'll talk a little bit more about that. The Shock Troopers went up $11. They were previously $35. I remember a time personally when they were $25. Or excuse me, they're $34. They went up $11. They are $45 now for this box set. Let's just go ahead and get the Shock Troopers out of the way real quick. We're not going to build these. I just wanted to talk about them and show you the sprue. Now, I have a Cadian command squad on the way that we're going to compare these guys to, of course, because you know, you can tell this is a newer sprue, and it's definitely made better than the handmade sprues. They do all this on computer now. They used to sculpt this, you know, by hand and basically put it into all the machinery and everything, and that's why there was all these gaps. If you made the sprue nowadays, you can make it a lot smaller. It probably wouldn't take as much plastic, but they've got the sunk costs into this already, so we're still going to get that. This is copyrighted 2005, so it's been around a while, 15 years. Now this sprue here looks terrific because, let's face it, this has some really solid upgrades on it that you're going to need in a squad, but depending on what you're playing, you might need more than one. You know, these right here, depending if you want to represent your stuff is like, I guess it could be a number of different things. Now, you know, detail wise, all the stuff looks great. Let's zoom in a little bit just to give you an idea. But all the heads look great, and obviously there's some female heads in here now that you can put on torsos, because for the most part you're not going to be able to tell if it's male or female, except for perhaps by the head. Just the way that the armor is for the Cadians here. So it's a cool idea in theory, but this right here is basically what you're paying $11 for. Now back to the Gaunt's Ghost, of course. These are probably what most people want to see actually put together on the tabletop. So you're getting one sprue, $65, one sprue for 6 guardsmen. You can come in an instruction book and some. These aren't 25mm bases. Those are like the 27mm bases. Interesting. Interesting. What size bases are these on? Oh my, did we just get new guard bases? So these are on 25. So the Cadians are still on 25s. It looks like, we'll check the instruction booklet right here. I did not notice that until just now. We'll check the instructions, see what they say size-wise. 28. So yeah, so that's the same size that they're putting the new Eldar Crafts World models on, like the Banshees, and that we saw back in 2019 in the Blood of the Phoenix box. So there we go. So as far as assembly goes, it isn't your traditional left and right, you know, customizable things. These are computer slices that generally overlap really well onto each other and hold and kind of hide the gaps, but also kind of minimize the mold lines. But you're still going to have to trim them. I mean, we'll look at the sprue here in a second. Option-wise, it didn't look like there was any option except for, I think it was it Corbeck or Rain? Oh, it's McCall. So McCall has the different head option right here. So you can do hooded or bareheaded, right? So front and backs, doesn't look like anything too complicated. You're definitely going to want to use that Tamiya super thin glue that I love using, because it's going to fill those gaps and you're not going to have to really go back and worry about anything as long as you trim it up nice and neat. I think that will be, these should, in theory, from the looks of it, just kind of go together pretty well. Now let's talk about the rules for a second. So the squad itself is 135 points. If the General's Handbook is to be believed, I would imagine that they're not going to change that. So 135 points for the squad of 6 men. You can see they have pretty neat wound characteristics right here, and they all have special rules. Basically, you get to infiltrate them on the board. They can't, well, they can be targeted, but not if they're with outside of 18 and it's neg 1 to hit. And then each of the squad has like some special rules. It's a little there's a little concern here with Bragg, because it says he just keeps to get, if he keeps missing, he keeps getting to try to shoot again with the autocannon, but he has a grenade that I think he technically can throw. So does that mean he can throw unlimited grenades? No, obviously not. But you know, there's always going to be that guy, and there's always those loopholes that it just seems to plague, you know, some rules offerings by Games Workshop. Jumping into the sprue here, you can see that, yep, it is going to be on that plane. They're not easier to build, little nubs. They're not easy to build or anything. Actually, they do have a little bit of nubs, so where you can line up some of the things that like mount to the back to the capes and things, but they're not push fit or anything like that. You are going to have to, you know, clip them down, trim up the flash. Everything on this plane, like the barrels of the gun and things like that, are going to have flash on it. Now, the models themselves, you know, pretty well detailed. We've seen a lot on these guys already, but from the looks of it, they're going to be a little bit taller than your standard guardsman, your standard Cadian, which is going to be kind of interesting. I think I could be misspeaking until we get them put together, but I don't have a standard plastic guardsman. I got a Sisters of Battle here, I got Primaris, and I have a Kriegsman, so that should give us a pretty good idea of how tall or how big these guys actually are. But yeah, very true to all the lore and everything like that, and of course they have the little clasps and the Tanith camo cloaks and things, and they got, you know, little pieces tied into them, and they just look great. Like, they're very well done. It's exactly what we'd expect to see miniatures wise from them. And now we'll take a look at them assembled. So first up is McCall, that we talked about a little bit with the head option. Did the kind of the half hooded head right there, just to give you an idea. Like, I love this new elements of terrain that GW does on everything. It gives you more to paint, of course, but you know, contrast can come into play with some of the terrain bits, and anything that's like super detailed really works. I've been using a lot of contrast on my Marvel Crisis Protocol figures. But this guy, I mean, he looks great, very well detailed. He got lots of folds in here to work on and highlight, obviously, the wood. And depending on how you want to do this, you could do all sorts of different things with like foliage or icicles or something like that. Whatever you want to do, you can put frost on here. So there's a lot of options, and he just looks very dynamic, just creeping around the trees like a crazy person. And then Rain looks very dynamic, and they have this really great way of like hiding all the gaps and things that they did. Like right here, you can see the seam, so you want to use some that Tamiya super thin or any super thin glue, and make sure you get that locked in pretty good, because then it'll fill up that gap. But if you do something like this, you can always use some Vallejo plastic putty to put in there, you know, smooth it out, and then it'll harden up, and it won't recede or anything like that. So he's smaller of a statue. I think he's probably the smallest statue of them all, but he looks great. Got all the things around his belt. Lots of things to paint on this. And then we've got the man, the myth, the legend, I suppose, Mad Larkin, taking a beat on something again with the terrain elements. So always lots to paint on these things. You can see where some of the stuff's gonna lock in right there. But yeah, for the most part, it seemed pretty seamlessly. It's hard to catch. And then we didn't use quite enough glue in there, but just to give you an idea of, you know, what not to do. Oh, also too, well, hold on. I want to show you one thing that might help you with your hobbying. So one of the fun things about these guys here, and let's look at Trag and Bragg. One of the fun things about these miniatures here is that they have that you can draw out the barrels, right? And you know, this Bragg looks great, like so dynamic, everything we would expect to see from just crazy looking, right? And just like screaming. Yep, that's exactly how it does. But one of the things you can do to drill out your barrels, and we didn't do it on here, but I just want to show you. Just get you a push pin. I just keep it in like a little wine cork, right? Just so I don't stab the crap out of myself, because I will. And all you got to do is just find the center hole here, like right about there, and boom, just put a little indent into it with your push pin, and then you can come along with your pin vise of appropriate size. I keep 3 different ones loaded. That one's probably too big. Go with the army painter one. I like the army painter one. Yeah, so there we go. So then you have this little notch or guide hole, pilot hole, I think they call it. This is more of a notch. You're gonna make a pilot hole with this and just start drilling it out. And see, you know, because if you start here, you might start wrong, and then you go off the side. But I find if I just notch it a little bit, it works super well. So that's a little bit of an idea for you. And of course, you know, like we were saying earlier, you want to use a super thin Tamiya glue. There's other ones out there too, just to get in the cracks and everything. Apply it a little liberally, and it will seal those up pretty good. Can you tell I'm saving the best 2 for last? So here's a Korvac. And he's got a lot going on, definitely signaling to the troops to target something or move out or something like that. He looks, you know, very dynamic, of course. They have the clasp, they got the cloaks, they got all the stuff going on, terrain elements, you know, some damage, you know, to the cloaks and some things like that. It's really crazy how they can notch out the plastic, but you know, and still make it look like it's worn, like actually fabric and being used. Just kind of nuts. Very cool to see. And I like these new little lasgun sort of things, designs that they got on there. You can even see there's a wood, like some wooden grain into that. Usually you see that sort of thing on Death Guard, which is kind of crazy. And then the man, the myth, the legend, Gaunt himself, very dynamic. Got a whole lot of things going on here. This, you know, kind of squishes together, and there's a lot going on. But if you're done right, you know, it comes together very well. And of course, he's got a little piece of gnarled bark or something like that as well. And again, you can use that same trick to drill out that bolter. It's super easy once you have your guide pilot hole sort of thing. And then you can kind of see where some of the mold lines and nubs and things that you'll have to trim out. Now, how do these compare to other miniatures out there? Well, let's take a look. Well, Gaunt, well, for obvious reasons, kind of describes his statute and appeal. So he's probably going to be a little bit taller than most. So when you compare him to a guardsman, well, this is a Kriegsman, which is probably a little bit smaller because the Forge-Rolled models are a little bit smaller than the Cadian models. That probably checks out for the most part right there, size-wise, I think. Sisters of Battle, painted by Castle Brush. On par with a Sister of Battle, you know. I mean, they're not metahumans, so I guess I could kind of see that. But I feel like if I had a Cadian here, it would be a little different story. And then to a Primaris, well, he's about the same size, hunched over-ish, I guess, with his hat. Kind of puts him over the top, so not really the same size, but definitely kind of sort of close, maybe. I don't know. They seem a little bit bigger, but bigger isn't always worse because, you know, you've got, well, let's look at like Rain here, because you got more space to paint. So he's a little bit smaller in stature, you know, and there you go. So I don't know. I mean, I would paint him. I don't think there's anything wrong with him. He seems, you know, appropriately. He seems maybe appropriately sized for what we would expect, but I don't think it's like. They'll definitely appear a little out of scale with the Cadians. I feel like if you have a bunch of plastic Cadians, if you have some Kriegsmen, they're definitely going to be a little bit out of scale. But at this point, when you have 20 years between some print runs, 15, 10, stuff's just going to be a little bit out of scale in your guard army. So I feel like that's just a little, maybe perhaps too nitpicky. But let us know what you think about it in the comments when it comes to the size and things like that. But overall, I'm pretty smitten with these. I think they're true to the form of, you know, all of the novels and everything like that we've seen throughout the years, and it's going to be really fun to have something that's kind of lightweight because they've been around before. Lightweight and a lot easier to paint and very well detailed, from the camo cloaks to all the gear to, you know, just the cool little trainy bits and the wear on the faux fabric cloaks themselves. It's just, you know, I think a lot of people want to talk mess about GW, but man, their designs are just some of the best out there for tabletop wargaming, and they continue to be release after release. So hey, that is it for this one. Thank you very much for watching our unbox and build of the new Gaunt Ghosts for Warhammer 40k. Now, obligatory self-promotion time. Hey, We know everybody doesn't want to subscribe to our Patreon or anything like that, but at least drop us a subscribe right there on YouTube. You can be the very first to know when we put out new content, so you can leave a comment first, second, third, where you're from, whatever. Hey, ask us a question. You know, we try to interact with those too, or you can always send us an email. I'll at least look at it. I always try to reply, but sometimes they do get lost. But if you want to do a little bit more, we do have a Patreon for that, so you can get ad-free access to all our content, including the site, for as little as $6 a month. If you want to do a little bit more, hey, we got a lot going on. We'll send you miniatures. We'll send you 3D printed STL files from all sorts of different artists to help support the artists out there. We have a lot of different other options too, where you can get a monthly miniature crate. We have one where it's $45 and you get $60 worth of stuff. We have some larger tiers as well. Most of those are sold out right now because it's the middle of the month, but we still have some stuff open. So hey, feel free to jump in at any of these levels as well. If you want to do a little bit more, get a little free ad-free access to all the content we put out, or looking for a monthly miniatures crate, well, this might be a great way to help support what we do and keep the lights on here.